Hi, this is Betty with Beyond the Dollar. I've been sitting here thinking about Hanukkah. Hanukkah's coming up in a couple of weeks, and I've had a lot going on in my mind. I'm working on a blog post right now um, and I'll touch on it briefly. Basically, Hanukkah, what we know is Hanukkah today, the, the Feast of Dedication. It's when the temple had been desecrated by Antiochus Epiphanes and during the time of the Maccabees, and when the Jews had won the war against them, and this was during the Second Temple era. So during those 400 silent years, I don't think those years were as silent as a lot of people think they were, but so during that time, um, there was this great victory. It was a Gideon like victory, and when it was over, and they were rededicating the temple and all of that. One of the things that they said was, we weren't able to celebrate Sukkot. So we're going to do, even though it's out of season for it, um, because Sukkot is celebrated. If you look in the Old Testament, it says, on the what is it, the 15th day of Tishri, on the seventh month and the 15th day is when you start the Feast of Sukkot, which is Feast of Tabernacles. It's the Feast of Ingathering. Um, so when they were going to rededicate the temple, they wanted to do a Sukkot celebration, which is a 7 to 8 day feast. Okay. So you have 7 days for Sukkot, and then you have the eighth day, which is Shemini Atzeret, which means the eighth day, um, it's a special Sabbath afterward. So it's really an 8 day celebration. So the thing about Sukkot is that it is a full blown festival of lights. Okay. It is an elaborate, joyous, pull out all the stops kind of celebration. Um, I don't know that any of um, I'm trying to think of something that might be equal in exuberance. Um, the only thing I can think of that is as joyous and as loud as an old fashioned Sukkot celebration would probably be, I'm gonna get flack for this, but probably would have been Mardi Gras. Okay, without all the debauchery to go with it. So Sukkot was a time of, we say, oh well, it's the festival of joy. Yeah, it was, but this was exuberant. There were they would do these, during the daytime. There was this water pouring ceremony that they did, and all of that. But at night, things kind of shifted. And in the courtyard of the temple, there were four pillars that stood 18 feet high. And on top of those pillars was a bowl. Um, these were brass. I want to say they were probably made out of brass. And these bowls were fire bowls. So if you imagine like a menorah, okay, these these light poles that are 18 feet in the air with oil lamps that are lit. So they had these ladders going up to um, going up to the top of this, so that they would pour the oil in there, and then the oil had to be lit. And there were these young priests, young apprentice priests, who would be tasked with the job of climbing those ladders, filling these lamps with oil, and lighting them. So if you can imagine the light that shone from these lamps, they say, shone like into all the, let's say, into all the backyards in Jerusalem. It's like it lit the place up like noonday. The other thing that was happening in the courtyard was you had the Levitical choir that was singing. So they'd line up on the steps in front of the temple. So if you can imagine, and I have to say it's one of my favorite choirs to listen to is an all male choir. I mean, I love choirs. I do. Um, give me a good choir. I love a good choir. Listening to an all male choir, phenomenal. So you think about, probably over 100 voices of men in different tones, and they're singing songs to the Lord. They're singing different psalms. There's specific ones which, frankly, I can't remember off the top of my head right now. Um, but they're standing on the steps, and so the atmosphere has this amber glow from the lights, this incredible rich sound of of the Levitical priests singing. It's if you've ever heard the monk choir, oh, off the charts. It almost makes your hair on your neck stand up. It's chilling. It's so moving, right? And then down in the courtyard, you have you have the scribes and the elders and these guys are all out there and they're dancing. And then you have those who have like lit torches and they're juggling these fire torches. I mean, you know, I- to me, I'm picturing like Cirque du Soleil, I mean, this was a fun thing. This was a joyous event. I mean, I remember as a kid going to the circus with my grandfather and my favorite thing was watching the high wire acts and the jugglers were great. I mean, I loved all that stuff. So when I think about the celebration that was going on in the courtyard of the temple, to me, it's a lot like that. It's this joyous, fun event. It's this outdoor event. It's phenomenal. It's wonderful. Everybody's laughing and singing and dancing, and it's wonderful. And they do this every single night for a week. Okay. And of course, the last night is like you know, the big celebration. So if you can imagine all of that, the only thing that I think that would have topped the event would have been if they would have had fireworks going on. I mean, just that's how joyous and celebratory that event is. So think about that in connection with Hanukkah. That's the kind of event that's going on during those 8 days. Okay. So, and when I think about the victory that was won, again, for those that are familiar with scripture, it's a Gideon like victory. Okay. You've got this little band of Hebrews, okay, over in Judah. You got this little band of Jews, and you have the entirety of the Seleucid army. It's like they're large and in charge. They're everywhere. These are the guys they're in charge. This is Greece, okay? This is not a little thing. They come in and they've destroyed things. They've enslaved people. It's a horrific thing that they've done. They've desecrated the temple and they've stolen from it. They've done all sorts of damage. But now this little band of Jews has won against this Seleucid army, and they're able to restore the temple and rededicate it. And they're like, I can't think of another celebration that would be appropriate for that kind of victory other than a Sukkot celebration. Okay? This is this is meaningful, you know? It's like there are other times in scriptures where we read that, there was something that happened. I think it was during the time of Hezekiah. The temple had been closed up for a season because his old man did some stuff and compromised it and all that. And Hezekiah comes on the scene, and the first thing he does is he opens the doors to the house of the Lord. He commands the priests to come in and do this work of restoration. And then when they're done, they do a Passover celebration, okay? Which again is appropriate. This was different. This victory calls for an off the charts week long festival of fun and celebration because they're now free. They had been living in caves because it wasn't safe. For years, they're living under this oppression. And to finally be out from under it, to be free again, to be able to come into the house of the Lord and to, it's kind of like you remember how we all felt when the churches were closed during COVID? And I mean, how ticked off everybody was. But there was nothing we could do because the government just shut us down. Okay, so without pointing the finger and getting all ticked off again, think about how that felt when we were shut down and we couldn't go out, we couldn't do anything. Now think about having to do that for like 3 or 4 years. But it isn't because of sickness. It's because some strong armed government comes in and says, you don't get to live your life anymore. We're coming in, we're large and in charge, and we are now going to oppress you. That's what they did. That's what the Seleucids did. Okay? They made it impossible for them. They couldn't plow their fields. They couldn't do anything. So now that they've won this war and they are now the victors, my God, they want to celebrate that. What better way to celebrate that than with a Sukkot celebration? To acknowledge God got us through. We went through this horrific ordeal. We went through this time where we were oppressed and beaten, and some of us died, and some of us didn't make it through. And it was a long, hard fight, but we're finally here. We made it, and we're free, and we get to be who we are. And now we want to celebrate, and we want to offer a thanksgiving to the Lord. And what a better way to do that than to celebrate Sukkot? Okay, off the charts. Boys, light the torches because we're getting ready to celebrate. Break out the ladders. Break out the oil. Come on, we're lighting it up because there is a reason for the light to shine. And we're going to light this puppy up and we are going to sing and we are going to dance because we haven't been able to for the last 3 or 4 years. We haven't been able to. That's the significance of Hanukkah being a Sukkot celebration. Let's light this puppy up. Now, we can get all somber and we can get all holy and all of that. That's not what's going on here. Now, the holiness was not extracted from that. Like I said, this didn't get to be a party of like Mardi Gras, where it was nothing but debauchery, where it was nothing but lewd and crude behavior, and people drinking it and getting drunk and throwing up in the streets. That's not what this was. This was exuberance and gratitude and thankfulness to the Lord. This was like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the 4th of July all rolled into one. This was an off the charts. We are going to celebrate like we ain't never celebrated before. That's Hanukkah. That's Hanukkah. We have a reason to celebrate. I don't know about you, but this year I have a reason to celebrate. I'll tell you what, the last 3 or 4 years have been hard. especially the last 3 years, have been the hardest 3 years I've been through in a very long time. They have been, just because of the stuff I've been dealing with, which I won't go into, I have a reason to celebrate. I'm still here. I'm still here. This thing didn't take me out. I know people that didn't make it through these last 3 years, but I'm still here. And if you're hearing this, you have a reason to celebrate too, because you're still here. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your hardships are. I don't know what your difficulties are, but I know this. You're still here and God is still with you, and he is going to bring you through this, and there is going to be a reason to celebrate, and we are victorious because it's Christ in me, the hope of glory. This is a time to celebrate like we ain't never celebrated before. So y'all break out your candles. If you want to get a menorah, okay, if you want to get a Hanukkah menorah and light it every night, and if that's your thing, you want to do that, I say go do that thing. You want to light it all up and get all the lights, all your Christmas lights out, and don your house with the flashy lights and all that. By all means, do it, because this is a time to celebrate. It's a time to light the light. It is time to celebrate like we've never celebrated before. And for some of us, we have to celebrate by faith. We have to pull out all the stops. I don't know about you, but like I said, this has been a rough 3 years. I have a choice right now. I can choose to sit here and get into depression and get into despondency and get into discouragement and all of that. I could choose to do that. And there's days, I got to tell you, when it's really hard not to let myself get overwhelmed with that. It, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that all of a sudden we should just be happy, but I got to tell you, we can be. Because by the grace of God, I can say the joy of the Lord is my strength. By faith, I can say I am coming out of a time of being severely oppressed of the devil. And that's the truth. These last 3 years have been really, really difficult. And you may not have been able to celebrate like you've celebrated before. You may not have been able to experience joy like you have in the past. But what I'm hearing from the Lord this day is this: this is a season of joy. You may not have been able back in what was it, October, when we celebrated Sukkot. It was either September, October, I forget, when we had Sukkot this year. But let's take the opportunity to celebrate like we've never celebrated before. And I'm not talking about spending money. I'm not talking about spending money we don't have. Okay? I'm talking about coming into a time of joy. Sometimes for us as a household, it's just we break out the dreidels. And you know what? My kids love those Ferrero Rochers. Okay? So that's what we use when we play the dreidel game. You know, um, you can use little plastic coins. You can use peanuts or raisins or whatever you have. Do something fun. Do something fun. Sometimes we'll just break out a deck of cards and play a game of rummy. I mean, spend time together as a family. If you have the opportunity to do that, do it. But don't do it with oppression, and don't throw all the trappings on it so that you spend the whole time working instead of just enjoying the day. Enjoy the time together with others. If you don't have if you don't have immediate family that you can spend time with, I pray that you find other friends or other people that you can spend some time with, and just, go play cards. There's a lot to be said for sitting across the table with someone and playing board games and whatnot. You know what? Back in the day, there's a reason why back in the day that was fun. Not because we didn't have other things to do, because we did, but because it built relationship, we had fun together, we could connect together. Put the cell phones down. Put your devices away, turn the TV off, and sit down with other people. Have a little nosh, have a little fun, enjoy the day. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. This is Betty with Beyond the Dollar. Shalom.